and shovel their roads.
We'll talk about that. I'd like to call this special city council meeting to order for December 11, 2017. Roll call of aldermen.
Alderman Hazel.
Here.
Alderman Kinsella.
Here.
Alderwoman Pusa. Here. Alderman Bittner.
Here.
Alderman Randall.
Here.
Alderman Tyler.
Here.
Alderman Anthony. Alderman Ovian. Alderwoman Schaefer. Here. Alderman Dintelman. Alderman Gah.
Here.
Alderwoman Steele. Here. Alderman Weigott.
Here.
Alderman Elmore.
Here.
Alderman Wigington. Alderman Barfield.
Here. Okay, Alderman Wigington, Dintelman, Ovian, and Anthony. I haven't heard, Anthony was a question mark, but the other three, he's just walking in? Okay, so we believe he's gonna be in here then. The other three are definitely called and are excused. At this time, the only department heads I would note that the city clerk is here, and the city treasurer and myself, and then city finance director Jamie Matrid, and our director of human resources and general assistant Sherry Favre. I asked her to be here as part of the levy, if any levy questions. The rest of the staff, and Johnny Anthony is here. The rest of the staff was not asked, they were not asked. I appreciate Rich Peppers, the director of IT, is here. So with that said, I'd ask everybody who's able to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Before I'm going to officially open the public hearing, which is the main order of business, and I want to read this statement. For tonight's hearing, please be reminded that Section 18-80 of the Illinois Truth in Taxation Law pertinently provides that all hearings shall be open to the public, and that the corporate authority of the taxing district shall explain the reasons for the proposed increase and shall permit persons desiring to be heard an opportunity to present testimony within reasonable time limits as determines. And that's per Illinois 35 ILCS 200/18-80. And that was a note shared with me to please read by our city attorney who couldn't be here tonight. We're holding this hearing that I just officially opened. It's annual, but there's some years we haven't had to by law have one because the increase was under 5%, and there's been years we've had minimal increase, but we're going to explain. I'm going to start out this evening, and we're going to call on everybody, and what I'm going to do is when I do start to take comments from the public, you raise your hand. When I recognize you, you go to the microphone, give your name. Try to keep your comments to 3 minutes approximately. And then after everybody's spoken, if there would be a person that has a second comment or question before we close this public hearing, at that time I would consider going back if somebody else needs a comment to clarify or whatever. I'm going to start off by asking our city finance director, for the sake of maybe answering a few questions right up front, I'm going to ask Jamie Matrid, who has been our finance director for how many years? 8 years. She is very qualified, has both her MBA and her CPA, and has done an outstanding job. And we have worked hard, all of us, to bring these this to you this evening. So I'm going to ask Jamie to start off and give a little history and some of the facts, and then we'll open it up for public questions and comment.
Thank you, Mayor.
Use that microphone best you can.
As some of you may have in front of you or seen in the paper, the 2016 levy extension from the prior year was $10,086,011. The proposed levy tonight is $11,294,375, which is just about a $1.2 million increase, or approximately 12% from the prior year. The levy is going up $1 million approximately from two lines: the fireman's pension contribution and the police pension contribution. These amounts of 3.4 million levied for each are our recommended minimum contribution from our independent actuary study that's done by the pension boards each year to determine how much needs to be contributed to not only fund current pension costs, but fund the unfunded liability that has been continuing to grow over the years, as decades ago the city council forefathers did not fund the pensions properly, and we're reaping the results of that now. So of the 3.4 million for each of those, actually about 2 million of each of those is to just fund the unfunded liability that has been accumulating over the years. The fireman's pension is currently approximately funded at 46%. The police pension is around 55%. We have been approached by Standard & Poor's, our rating agency, over the past year. They actually downgraded our bond rating due largely in part to not funding the pensions to a higher percentage. So this has affected us in other ways, which can drive up interest costs on debt, as well as other funding sources. So that is why the city administration is proposing to fund these pensions to the level recommended by the pension actuaries. Unfortunately, it does cause an increase in the levy amount of $1 million. The other increase for this year is what's under the GCA, or General and Community Assistance General, and General and Community Assistance tax lines. These were lines that were previously levied under Belleville Township. As all of you probably know, the Belleville Township was dissolved. The city of Belleville took over all of those services. So now we have to levy under our levy to provide those services. The net effect of this is zero because the township line is going away. It's just coming under the city of Belleville now. So all of our other tax lines, the vast majority have gone down or stayed flat. The biggest cause of the increase is the police and fire pension contributions as required. Something to note is if we do not fund these pensions, what will happen is the pension boards can go to the state. The state will withhold other funding sources to the city and give them to the pensions anyway. So the pension boards will get their money regardless. What the city council has to decide is how to fund them, whether by real estate tax levy, as we've always done in the past, or another funding source.
And just to make that clear, I think since the beginning of time, the city of Belleville forefathers have chosen to fund the pensions through property tax. A lot of people over the years have said to me that, you know, well, my property tax pays for police and fire. Property tax does not pay for our general fund, does not pay for funding, buying fire trucks, paying firemen, paying policemen, does not pay for any of that. The property tax, as it's been for over 50 plus years at least, has always taken care of 60% of your property tax that's part of the city of Belleville is police and fire pension.
Correct.
And then there's a percentage of IMRF pension, and then there's a couple other things. Now we added the general assistance that used to be the township, which, as Jamie explained, there's no more going to be a township line on your bill. This will be under one taxing, and it's not changing this year. It's exactly what it was last year. There's a spot on that tax bill that talks about the library, about recreation, a small amount, and about insurance. Is that pretty much? I don't have it in front of me, but that's, so that kind of explains, but the lion's share is pensions. And we just want to make it clear, as Jamie said, if we don't fund it properly, then the state can and will hold funds back. Maybe it's our income tax checks, which probably be where they probably start, our sales tax, and that's the taxes that we receive, how we pay payroll and how we pay policemen and firemen by every 2 weeks, how we pay our bills. So the property tax has been the way it's been established, probably whenever it started. I mean, maybe longer than I am old, and I'm 60, soon to be 62, but it's been at least 50 years, it's been this way. And this was the way, and to my knowledge, in all the years I've been on the city council, I do not ever remember a discussion when I sat out there or up here the last dozen years plus. No one's ever brought forward a suggestion how we should pay for pensions in a different way. It's unfortunate, but we were randomly picked, as Jamie said, to have an audit by Standard & Poor's. But they hit us because, and in the letter, it's very clear, they're very unhappy with the state of Illinois' pension situation across the board and the general economy were the two major issues that we were dropped down a notch. And if we want to improve that status, we certainly have to fund the pensions to the recommended amount, or it could go even down further, which can hurt our bond rating, cost us more interest, and have other effects. So I wanted to give those explanations. Before I open to the public, do the aldermen have any initial comment or question or statement that they want to make, and we'll open it up to the public? Okay. Yes, sir.
How many years is this we're behind? How many years is it going to take to catch up?
I believe the pensions need to, they say 2042, is it, Dean?
By 2040, the
2040.
pension needs to be 100% funded.
Do you realize the amount of money they're paying out on this, that you could pay these guys $30,000 a year? In 20 years, they could retire $2.5 million.
I'm not quite following you, Dennis.
Well, the money you're paying into this pension fund, the $7 million,
Mm-hmm.
say we have 200 employees between the police and the fire department, I don't know how many there is, but it averages out about $30,000 per man. Now, if they take that money and put it in, we put it in a special fund, which I know we can't, but you know, at the end of 20 years, they'd probably be worth about $2.5 million.
There are many suggestions statewide in the Illinois Municipal League, and I'll be glad if we haven't already forwarded that to the aldermen. There's 5 proposals that just went to the legislation from the IML about being from the extreme to the more moderate or more baby step type thing, pension reform. And I will be the first to tell you, something needs to happen.
But unfortunately, the police and fire pensions are dictated by state statute,
Right.
which we have no control over.
Right.
But new hirees that we hire, can we pass it, or is this something that when they come in, they're under a different pension plan?
We can't violate
You
state
can't
statute.
violate the contract or the pension law. We'd have to, if there was any changes there, it would have to be negotiated,
It would have to be by state statute.
state statute and through collective bargaining. So, you know, that's a little bit of what we're up against. But the pension, let me just go back and say this. Jamie mentioned it. This city council has funded the pensions as per the state's request since 1997. I believe that's when it was the first time we consistently have hit the actuary that we were told. In fact, there was a big upheaval the first year I was on this council in 97, because to do what the state then mandated that first full year, we had to increase the levy 32%. And that was a big news flash. But we were doing what the state mandated us to do then as well. So unfortunately, prior to 1997, it might have been inconsistently, and maybe it wasn't every year, maybe it wasn't every administration, but for many years, they didn't properly fund the pensions. They underfunded them, and that's why we have the deficit, and that's why we have to deal with this today. And many of the people who are retirees today are collecting the pension, worked their 20, 30 years with the city of Belleville, and gave valuable time to us as policemen and firemen, and they certainly deserve it. And the ones working today are with the same expectation that there's gonna be a pension there for them someday when they're complete their service. So I will now open it up to the public for questions or comments. Please raise your hand. I will gladly recognize you one at a time, and you can come to the microphone. So, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Alicia Bradley, Belleville, Illinois. I thank you for the clarity on many levels. I just have several questions since the truth taxation law, and please correct me or redirect me to a site if I get anything wrong. The Truth Taxation Act was enacted in 1981. So my questions are, what year was the total property taxes extended or abated prior to 2016 for Belleville? What was the total property taxes extended or abated dollar value prior to 2016? Is this the first time a notice was published in a newspaper for a public hearing regarding the truth taxation because the tax levy is more than 5%, greater than a previous year's taxation? And then, can our city council provide Belleville, Illinois taxpayers and homeowners a comparison amount of its proposed property tax levy from 2014 to 2015 prior to the city council approval of 50 special use permits, which in turn allow those 50 residential properties to no longer be included on our property tax roll? And then, or can our city council provide Belleville city taxpayers and homeowners a comparison amount of its proposed property tax levy to the amount of taxes extended for the district in the prior years from the initial onset our elected officials allowed any residential properties to be used for dormitory usage? In my opinion, this information will help the Belleville, Illinois taxpayers understand that the Truth in Taxation Act, which was enacted as law since July 29, 1981, has been implemented appropriately by our Belleville elected officials, and that all citizens have been properly informed and included in the truth regarding our city taxation policies and procedures. Thank you all.
Okay, Alicia, that's a pretty long list of questions. What I would ask,
You'll email me.
if you email it, we will gladly provide it to the media, the questions and the answers. But a few of them we could probably rattle off quickly, but that was a pretty lengthy, thorough list. So I will just tell you, I don't know the number. Jamie can go back and look. But it's true, we have not had to have a public meeting like this every year. Huh?
Since
2009 was the last time. That was Jamie's first year. And I know we've had one or two other ones during my time here, but we'll have to do a little research for that right there too. But we will do it, and we will answer those questions. Good questions, but had we had them ahead of time, we could have probably had some answers here tonight. Okay, who's next? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Michael Hagberg. First on the tax levy. For every $2 that you increase the tax levy, an additional $1 has to be collected for TIF funding. When you raise the levy, this year's levy, by $1.2 million, the taxpayers of Belleville are being forced to also pay $500,000 in additional TIF taxes. This means that the Belleville taxpayers are going to have to reach into their pockets and hand over an additional $1.7 million to City Hall. And to note, this does not include the expected increases for the county and school districts. The BND quoted our finance director as estimating the increase to be in the range of $30 to $80 for an owner of a $100,000 home. I once again have to disagree with her figures. Her estimate of 30 cents per 100 EAV would mean a $100,000 owner-occupied home would see an increase of $82. A non-owner would see an increase of $100. I'll come back in April and we'll see whose estimates are closer to the actual. Now let's talk about the pensions. I'm sure you're all going to hear, as we did, oh, it's not our fault, the pensions are mandated by the state. Well, it is our fault. We've known for a long time that the current pension system is broke and cannot be sustained into the future. This city and other municipalities need to force a change in the current system and do it soon. Mr. Eckert, when you took office 12 years ago, the firemen and police pension liabilities were funded at 44% and 52% respectively. This year, they're funded at a slight decrease of 41% and 52%. During this time, the property tax levy has more than doubled from $5.5 million to $11.3 million. The current pension projections call for a payroll increase of 4% per year. This can be accomplished by salary increases or hiring additional personnel that pay into the system. Either way, it's a pyramid scheme. The higher the salaries, the higher the future liability. It also assumes that the pension investments will earn 7% interest year over year. And when this doesn't happen, it's the taxpayers that are forced to fund the shortfall. It's time for this council to discuss the possibility of converting the fire, police, and IMRF pensions into a 401k style pension. Much like the private sector where employees contribute and are matched by their employer, and there is no future liability beyond the current year. The employees would then be free to control their own retirement fund. Year after year of ever-increasing property taxes hasn't solved the pension problem. Higher taxes are being forcing those living on fixed income to sell and leave the city. Higher taxes are also discouraging home buyers from settling in Belleville. The time is now to step up and address the problem, formulate a long-term solution, and get it done soon. Thank you.
Anyone else? City Council, anyone here have any additional questions or comments at this time? This will be going to the finance meeting in a little while when this meeting's concluded. And the proposal will be presented to the finance meeting. There's no vote to be taken tonight at this special meeting. It was for purpose of public hearing only. There will be a vote taken in finance. Alderman Consilla will chair that meeting, and that vote will come forward. And if you so desire, then that recommendation will be taken to council on the 18th. We have to do that because we have to have filed at the courthouse the levy before the end of the month. And we were quite honestly still waiting on actuaries just actually a week or so ago. Otherwise, we'd have been glad to have this meeting even sooner. So just remember this, even though some of you maybe don't have a question here at this moment additionally, which is fine. You feel free, you can contact Jamie Matrit, our city director of finance. You can contact my office. Alicia, if you get us those specific questions, we'll answer those. And if anybody else has a question, you want to shoot us an email, we'll be glad to answer you. And there will be public participation, if you think of anything, available the night of Monday, a week from tonight, on Monday, December 18th. We will have public participation in the beginning of that city council meeting that you will have an opportunity to speak before we put it to the city council's vote that night, providing it comes out of committee tonight. Okay, with that being said, hearing nothing else, I'm going to, there's no other business tonight per this special meeting. I'm going to adjourn the special city council meeting and this public hearing, and we will reconvene at 7 in just a few minutes for finance.